Here.
Commissioner Benson?
Here.
Commissioner Trullo?
Here. First, want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Obviously, we have an important item on the agenda, something that means a lot to everybody in our community. We do welcome all comments. We ask to keep it brief, as there is a lot of people that might want to comment, and maybe somebody has a comment that they've got on their same mind. But with that, just try to keep it brief, be respectful, and help us solve the problem. That's all we're asking for. Let's be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. There's a lot of things going around in the internet world that some true, some not true, and some just patently false. So hopefully you guys come away from here tonight with a little more clear understanding of where we're at, why we're looking at what we're looking at, and where we can go from here. I do want to say my personal opinion, which has not been put out in the internet world, is from day one when we started talking about cuts needed in this budget, it was my goal was provide full-time fire EMS to the citizens of Neodesha, but also be able to do that in a responsible manner that does not add a tax or fee onto the citizens of Neodesha. So I applaud Commissioner Banson for the work that he's done. This has been a little more mainstream than the work that I've been doing. But I applaud the work on the recommended meter charge. I do want to say that I don't support that. That is my personal standpoint. Again, I speak for myself, not on behalf of the city or the commission. It doesn't solve the problem. I've got some notes, and so the root issue that we're seeing here is not a revenue problem. It's a spending problem. And some of the things that cause didn't expect that so early, but thanks. So the thing is, we've got to get to the root of the problem before we can fix it. And throwing more money at the problem doesn't fix it. It's just a Band-Aid that has to be ripped off at some point later down the road. We're kicking the can. And so we can do both. We can still provide full-time fire EMS, be able to fully support transfers for Wilson Medical Center, and also do it responsibly without burdening our taxpayers. And so I do think that we've come up with a plan for that. Again, this is me speaking. This is me and Brogan. Props to Brogan. He had his line on me all weekend. We've talked about different ideas, and think we have a proposal that is enticing. We can talk a little bit more about that, but the big thing I want to point out is the amount of overtime that has accumulated in this department has set us into the spiral that we're in. And then you accompany that with the cost of inflation, which everybody feels. That just adds to pain. And so one other issue that we've been dealing with is billing. There's some billing issues that have now been rectified. And I see Austin in the front row. He's been a big part of helping Brogan get that under control and figure out where we go forward. And so that has been fixed. As far as the OT and operations, we went away from the fire chief, the standard fire chief role. Instead, we have elected to, we have named Chief Sam Tomlinson as Public Safety Director. And there's no doubt in my mind, with his leadership, we will get things turned around, and it'll be turned around quickly. So my confidence is there that the ship can be righted with the right moves. And the right move is not throwing more money at the problem. And I'll just throw it right out there. My suggestion is an 8-man department. We currently have a 13-man model, which calls chief, 12 technically. We haven't been able to fill a 13-man department since, gosh, I don't know, since Chief 5 comments later. I'm gonna make my statement, I'll ask each of the commissioners for theirs, we'll ask the city administrator, and then we'll open it for comments. This 8-man department would look like 2-man shifts. We've talked about 48 hours on duty, 48 hours on call. We've also thrown around the idea of 24 hours as being feasible, and is under review cost-wise. That would be a rotating shift structure, and it would allow us to handle transfers with WMC, business as usual, with no change from the current expectations. So, that is what I bring to the table today. I've been working with Rogan on that. I didn't feel like Facebook was the appropriate place to share that, but I'm glad to share it with everybody here tonight, and I look forward to getting everybody's comments, as well as my fellow commissioners. Why this would work? Neodesha previously operated under a similar model. No decline in service or efficiency was had. Cost controls, it reduces excessive overtime costs and aligns staffing with call volume. Service quality, a 2-man crew can meet transfer emergency needs as demonstrated historically right here in our community. And accountability, it focuses on solving inefficiencies from overtime, billing, and other, rather than passing the cost on to the residents. Apparently word got out, I get thumbs blown up. So, I will be glad to answer any questions you have on that proposal and hear your thoughts, as well as on the, other proposal that's been made. But at this time, I'm going to turn it over to, Commissioner Bancek, and then Commissioner Truelove, followed by City Administrator Rogan.
I'm not as loud spoken as some, so I think we need to stand up. So thank you, Tony, for the mic. As former fire chief, what concerned me about the budget as it was last commission meeting was that, yes, it's an 8-man roster as proposed. What we're looking at was 2 on duty for 48 hours and then off for 6 days. Don't think it's working?
Yeah, you just gotta yell.
I just gotta yell louder.
You gotta get it.
Okay, I'll get louder into it. There we go, get it right up to my mouth. So, 2 24-hour shifts was what, we've been working on with, 6 days off in between, and no call. The issue I have as the former fire chief is we have to have the ability to transfer patients at the hospital. That is all I'm trying to accomplish. We have to have backup if we're only gonna have 2 on duty, if we have a structure fire, a car wreck, any of that type of stuff that takes more than 2 people. 8-man department worked under me, but we had call. So we had backup. All I'm trying to do is find a way to assure that we have backup, because the plan previously was not to have any call, not to have any kind of backup. So, I've lost a lot of sleep thinking about this, trying to figure out how cuts could be made that would fund up the shortfall, and I keep coming up short. So the only thing I could think of, and it took me weeks to think of this, was this plan that I proposed. I don't like it, any more than some of you do. But I tried to come up with something simple and easy to understand and not overly expensive, that didn't add to your meter spinning, the costs that were there. It's just a proposal. It's not, if anything, that help us, generate us to think of more ways that we could do something to solve the problem. So, if you got more questions about the plan tonight, I can go into that, but that was the basis behind it, is to try to find a way to get back.
true love. I've met many of you in here, maybe not all. I used to work for the city. I have a keen interest in making sure that whatever we're doing right now is gonna help us to be successful in the future. This presented itself as a budget shortfall where we figured out quickly that there's no way we're gonna be able to continue to fund things at the level that we have in the past. I appreciate what the mayor said about it's a spending deal. I think that helped to get us where we are now. We have very good equipment for all of our departments, new ambulances, but when you start examining these things, we're almost equipped as well as larger cities in our area. So that's where it got our attention, first of all, was the budget shortfall. And that's stated to be about $500,000. And then we have ideas about how we can recoup some on the ambulance charges, how we can save money here, save money there. I have limited contact with citizens over the last couple of weeks, but the contacts that I have all been very clear that they're not in a position to support a meter increase to the tune that has been suggested. And as Commissioner Banzit and the mayor are saying, nothing has been decided. This is all out there for discussion amongst our community and amongst the governing body and staff. Nothing's been decided yet. But on those limited contacts, I'm hearing there is no support for that. I'm going to also be very keenly aware of the fact we just did a ribbon cutting on our new energy center, and our community is going to be paying for that, those generators out there. So that represents in itself for something that's extremely important for our community. That represents an increase in our utility bills just to pay for that debt. And I'm not picking on that project out there. I think it's wonderful that when the power goes out, we'll be able to flip some switches and get us power again in the right circumstances. The great thing about what we're doing right now is the advice and the discussions I've had with the city administrator. We don't need a short-term fix. We need a long approach to this. We're going to play the long game. We need to be able to figure out how to make our budget not only healthy in 26, but in 36. What is our long-range plan? So with that, just kind of a position of where I am now, the comments from the citizens that I've spoken to, we have a community interest to make sure that we're financially healthy going into the future. And I'm really proud to see that this many people showed up to attend this discussion.
Okay, all right. So what we'll do, we'll go ahead and open the floor for comments. And I know Ed Dunsing had asked to be brought up first. He has provided a little insight to us, and I think has some good PowerPoint for us if we can get it done. I can get it going.
I'm Ed Dunsing. Test. Hello?
You gotta put
My name's Ed Dunsing. I'm a nurse practitioner here in Neodesha. I've only lived here in Neodesha for about 3 years, but I've taken some great interest in this community, and I have a clinic here. We have a great EMS service. We have great citizens here. We have a hardworking council that sometimes we don't agree with. 50% are going to be happy, 50% are going to be mad. That's life when we have something come up. So there has to be a compromise. And what they were talking about, I've been working on too, but I went further and I was able to get information from the Open Records Act. We have, and where do I feel, I mean, I'm a nurse practitioner, yes, but what is my background? I started off as an EMT in Republic County. Small community, 200 people less than this. One crew on 24/7, rest are volunteers. They don't get paid to be on call because of the Labor Relations Act or Board of Labor. You have to be paid to be on call minimum wage. If you have a 5-minute response time, the state of Kansas requires you to be at the station within 5 minutes and en route to a call. Unless that's changed. But if you have that type. Now, if you're a nurse, I've been on call for $1 or $2 an hour before, but I had 30 minutes to an hour that I could respond into the hospital to take care of the patients. But what you're looking at is, I've also worked as a paramedic in Topeka, population of 177,942 Shawnee County. 5 ambulances 3 ambulances on the street 24/7, 5 on during the daytime. 3 ambulances at nighttime covering 177,000 people. Does it work? Well, they're still taking care of people there. Hays, Kansas, population of Ellis County, let's just say, 21,213. Hays alone, that's actually Hays, sorry, 21,213. Ellis County is 29,000. 2 ambulances full-time in Hays. Now they do have another service, kind of like Fredonia, that covers over in Ellis. They have another ambulance over in Victoria. But it's kind of like here, we covered the city. We're not covering the entire county with our service. So I have some numbers that I brought up. 2025, I had asked for this open records, and this is kind of the funny part. And 2025, there's been 187 documented calls. I started working on this a lot this morning, of which 11 were fire related. That's 0.82 calls a day. Granted, some days have 3 or 4 calls. No calls were made between August 1st at 3:28 p.m. and August 9th at 1:29 a.m. So they had a nice week where they didn't have any calls. They got to kind of relax and recoup. However, with this data, I could just bury my head in the sand, kind of like $200,000 that the county didn't get reimbursed for, and say, oh, that's not a big deal. How many of you guys would like $200,000? I would. But what I found out after I went through 2025, they didn't provide me information from January 3rd to May 8th. So I was missing 4 months of data. So then I went through 2024 today. And so in 2024, there were 735 calls, of which 60 were fire related. So that's an average of 2 calls a day. Some days there's 5 or 6 calls, some days they have none. Second call at the same time as another occurred only 41 times in the entire year. 27 of those calls were actually when a unit was on a transfer. So there's only 14 where there was actually 2 emergencies at the same time. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say? Okay. So that comes out to be about 0.038 average call per day, or about 1 dual response every 14 days, so every 2 weeks on average. We have Nick Moreland, who is salaried at $70,000, gonna make $96,000 on projection with overtime. We have Caleb Berger, salaried at $77,000, projected to make $85,000. We have Josh Hubble at $61,600, projected to make $82,000. We have Austin Hill, $59,771, projected to make $80,000. We have, I have her on here, she's no longer employed, so I won't bring that one up. But Nick is gonna be 137% over his normal salary. Caleb, 110%. Josh, 119%. Austin, 130%. Houston, we have a problem. Yep. So I was also working on this AABBCCDD shift, where they're on 48 hours, then they're on call for 48 hours, and then they get 4 days off. So basically, they have to give up 4 days of their life every 8 days, and then they have 4 days off, okay? 2 of those days, you got to be at the station. The on-call days, they could be anywhere as long as they're 5 minutes from the station. Well, what's that mean if they live in Coffee? They've got a job in Neodesha. They have to figure out how they would stay here and cover that call time. That's on them. I had proposed, and I was talking to Devin, it's not realistic, and I understand that, $10 an hour to be on call. Then they get called in, they would make the regular salary or time and a half. The state, or the National Department of Labor, like I said, requires minimum wage to be on call, so $7.25 is probably more realistic, okay? This would also cut down the hours that they are salaried a month from 212 to 184 on their 48 on. That's not including on call, but 212 to 184. But the on-call time would more than compensate for what they would be losing pay-wise by being on call. There's a couple other points I wanted to make, but they have the numbers that they've worked out. Mine are about 100,000 higher than what theirs are, because I was calculating in, I was going a little bit unrealistic, but tossing it in that in the salary, or in the projected budget, they built in 10% overtime, so I did that too on mine. Then I took and went a step further and said, okay, there were 60 fire calls last year. Let's just say they're out there on the fire for 4 hours. Okay, and there's 4?
Yeah, can we keep it brief?
Yes.
We've asked everybody to
Sorry.
keep it brief.
We need to hear all this, Debbie.
Yeah.
No, that's fine, that's fine.
Don't
I'm just-
interrupt, nobody's gonna
Let
interrupt
it
you.
go on with it, things we're in.
I'm trying to set a precedent so we're not here at midnight, that's all I'm doing.
If you have to leave before midnight, you leave.
Important information that I bet he will share with everybody, I'm just saying make it brief, please.
I'll try to get it in.
Wasn't a good call.
I forgot where I was. Anyways, I am gonna now, Devin and Brogan and the commission, I was gonna throw under the bus until I did some further research and talked to a couple about why was there no checks and balances for the revenue that is not collectible after a year, like $200,000, no big deal, by one person on the commission. But $200,000 is a lot, and that could have helped out a bunch right here. But I did talk to Devin. Why was there not any communication? Why was there not oversight? And it makes sense. You guys heard the word HIPAA? HIPAA keeps people from doing a lot of things. And so, from what I've been told, not just by Devin, but a couple other people, prior fire chief, always said, well, it is what it is because insurance companies don't pay and we can't give you that information because of HIPAA. Well, there are ways around that, and they found ways around it now, and there are checks and balances in place. So thank you guys for doing that. And then I'm gonna stop on how this could work. They're on the right track. They just need some more information to fill in. But I think you can maintain a fire-based EMS service with 2 people on and 2 people on call. And yes, it's gonna interrupt the 8 fire EMTs, paramedic that work, but we all have to make choices of what is best for us. So, I could go out and heavily recruit EMTs and paramedics if I needed to, but hopefully they will also see the benefit of this for all the citizens. And then finally, the one question that keeps getting brought up, I see on Facebook, and I'm gonna ask it, and hopefully it's, for everybody, that the 1% of the county tax that goes towards EMS and fire, how is that being applied? And I thank you guys for listening to me. If you have questions, talk to me. I would be happy to address them. Hopefully I didn't take too long to bore you.
So, I don't need a mic to do this. The first thing I do want to address and rebuff is the number not billed that's been flowing around the community. back to January 1, 2024, we have gone back and billed approximately $235,000. I think it's actually a shade above that. Through our billing company, they told us to expect $110,000 coming in revenues. That issue has been corrected. It has been billed out. We are receiving money as we speak. The second part I will put into that is there was never checks and balances before, and I don't have a better answer for you than that's the way we've always done it. That has been corrected. We've put that in place. City Hall now receives monthly reports with what they put in, what runs they log, and what we're billing. So that is corrected, will be maintained, will be looked after in the future. And then towards the 600,000 number is what we do for EMS sales tax. That number comes directly into our general fund and is used to offset costs to this department. So if that number did not come in, you can think of it as the EMS fund being about $600,000 more than what it actually is. So I hope that answers your question. If you want an idea of where it directly went, Sprinter ambulances, salaries, payroll, benefits. Lucas device, a couple other small order items, and those departments, they still cost $50,000 a piece, but that's what that money is being used for, is to provide and maintain the service that the city of Neodesha has been used to having for many, many years.
Thank you, Brogan. We'll pass the mic around for anybody that would like to speak, or if they want to come to the podium, that's fine too. I did just ask Rhonda to go make some copies of his presentation. Again, it was no ill will intended. It was just we're trying to not be here all evening, and so we're starting with 10 copies. Anybody that would like one, feel free to grab one. Rhonda will be back with those momentarily. Okay? Thank you. Hi, Brian.
Hey, Brian Anderson, I'm a resident here. My question is, first, I think all city commission meetings need to be moved to this time or a little later. 4 o'clock doesn't meet the needs of the community. Our kids are getting out of school, our families need to be present. And it's an accountability of the citizens back to you guys to allow that to be in the evening. If people don't show up then, that's their own fault, not ours. So, I wanted to ask Ed a question on the figures he gave. And if you want a good joke of the day, just go see Ed in his clinic. He's got some great jokes. But the numbers you gave, Ed, are those just the salary or are those the benefits package?
That was just the projected salary.
Okay. And are they,
individual?
do the individuals in the community with the city, do they receive capers?
Yes.
Okay. Because one of the things that has to be understood about salaries are one thing, benefits packages are another, and for every dollar earned, the city has an obligation to pay up to 10% of that dollar earned to the employee's capers fund. So the more they make, so when you get to overtime, if you're paying time and a half, that number goes up. So you could be looking at a substantial amount of money on that. My question is, in the current proposals that are sitting there, do they still include an up to 6% pay increase for the city employees? Because this was something that was shared with me on Friday night, that Brogan had said that there is a merit increase and a potential merit increase on top of that. And so I want to know if that's still there, and then how can you justify in a budget crisis, because that's where we're at, how can you justify in a budget crisis to honor that? Anybody sitting out here that works in the public sector, owns their own business, knows that when the money gets tight, unfortunately that means you can't do certain things, such as raises. And I know there's a lot of misinformation on the overtime. I don't fault any employee going into overtime. Some people will say they're manipulating it, I don't know. Where I put the fault is back up in front of us, because you guys are the ones accountable to the budget and to the department heads to make sure people stay within that. So I would like to know where that 6% stands, and why would that still be on the table if we're in that kind of a budget crisis right now?
So I can answer your question on that. The proposal that Brogan and I have talked about does away with the COLA. There will be no cost of living advance next year.
Can't hear you, Dan.
So, can you hear me okay now?
That's better.
All right. So the proposal that I have laid out, that Brogan and I have discussed, and so obviously things to work through, but it does include taking out the COLA, which is the cost of living raise. Does not take out the merit-based raise though. So there are still merit raises that can be earned, but the COLA just for existing will not exist. merit raise is, thank you for doing your job over exceedingly well. We think you need rewarded for that. Here's a merit raise.
Here's got 1 year, 2 years teacher, never.
And there's a lot of people in the same boat.
He told, they made twice as much as I did in 32 years of teaching. I worked a lot of overtime.
Can I, because that was my additional question. My question then would be, what is the amount of merit increase one could receive? And what is that calculated to be on the overall budget as we're moving forward? Because I don't want to see people not get a merit increase if they're doing a great job, but I've been in a position where my agency said, sorry, we're not doing merit increases, we're not doing COLA, and by the way, we're also cutting staff out of the picture. And sometimes tough decisions have to be made, and maybe there's positions within the agency, the city, that can be done away with, and those job needs to get pushed over somewhere else.
I'll answer that question. I'll look over Devin's shoulder to make sure I'm right. Okay, so the annual 3% cost of living and 3% also on the merit side would equate to our utility funds, for everybody employed in those funds, $41,815.84. For our general fund, it's $51,319.99. For those who don't know the difference, general fund, streets, museum, public facilities, police department, EMS, and fire department. Those are our general funds that count into that number. Enterprise funds, solid waste, gas, water distribution, sewer system, water production, sewer lagoons. So that's the exact answer to that question. The city always budgets 3%. It's common practice. They've done that for the last 30, 40 years.
But it's also got to understand that if you do a 3% today, if you do a
Administration
3%,
is in the utility fund.
if you do a 3% today, that means next year's 3% is more than this year's 3% for that same employee. So it goes on. And would the city consider, instead of doing a merit increase, a merit check, just a lump sum? Maybe you can't do that. I'm in a business that does that, where instead of the merit increase, they'll say, here's a merit check. We'll honor that, but it doesn't impact future budgets because it didn't increase the by a percentage amount. A bonus.
I hate to tell you, but I know my husband never got 3%.
Well, and there's a lot of
And
people
he
in the
worked
private
for the
sector
city
that don't
how
get 3%.
many years?
You know, that's the other thing, there's the private sector, yes, please.
I can't.
Can somebody, Tommy, can I got it.
Come on, Tommy.
Come on, get a mic on,
So you're saying that there is not going to be an increase in wages, no percent at all, but there will be a merit increase, is that correct?
So a merit raise is not guaranteed.
But there will not be across the board raise.
There would not be a COLA raise, no.
If approved.
If approved, again. This
My
is
other
just one
question
option.
is, and I think our firemen and EMS are wonderful, don't take this question wrong, but do they get paid to be in the parade? If they do, they shouldn't be. That's either volunteer or no fire trucks in the parade. That's my opinion. And I come to commissioners meeting and state my opinion on it.
And I love it, thank you for your help. Oh, okay. Hey, Tommy, Erica's been.
So I just had a question about budget as far as past years, and why are we in this position now when we actually had the 1%? And how come it, how, were we this far over budget in past years? So why is it so bad now? Like, what caused this to happen?
Well, there's a couple things. And some of it is just ill-timed in terms of increasing department from 8 to 12 with the chief. That was a large budget issue right there. That created a strain. The other things are Winter Storm Uri, COVID, inflation. It's all hit to an extreme where before you didn't feel the impact as much because the city was able to transfer and cover. We're finding those transfers do not cover to the extreme that they were covered 5 years ago, 4 years ago, even 3 years ago. Another thing that is probably gonna play into that, during Winter Storm Uri, the city incurred a cost of more than $875,000 that it did not pass on to its customers. The city of Neodesha took that on 100%. None of that was passed on to the customers. So, really, to answer your question, it's time, it's inflation, it's a couple of crazy events that have now led to the impact where these transfers don't cover as much as they did, is the best way to put it.
Will that 1% not cover the salaries for the upcoming years? Like if,
That 1% will
Or will
not
it?
cover salaries even on an 8-man department.
No, and that's been my issue with the county all along, even back when I was chief. State law requires the county to provide EMS. They can choose to do it themselves, or they can contract it out. They have chosen to contract it out with Fredonia Hospital and the Neodesha Fire Department for as long as I've been here. What it was before that, I don't know. The amount of money they gave before the sales tax happened did not cover the salaries of Neodesha Fire Department. Even when it was 8-man and on call. The sales tax, even though it is a lot more money than we used to get, didn't we just get like 247 or?
247, I think is the highest.
247,000 before the sales tax went into effect, did not cover the salaries of the department. 600,000 that we're getting now plus, I think we budgeted for this year only 600,000, we actually collected like 694.24. And I think this year we're budgeting 650,000. But it doesn't cover the cost of the employee. When you throw in all the benefits and everything else, it doesn't cover it. I believe we need to, the county should at the very least pay what it costs to have the employees to do the job. The everyday supplies and the stuff they use and the equipment, I think the city could handle that. But that's where I'm at. That's where I think.
An important note to make on, an important note to make on the EMS sales tax is, as Dwayne's referring to, before the sales tax, the county levied funds for Neodesha and Fredonia. That 243, I think is the exact number. That number, when the sales tax kicked in, came off the books, no longer received. So when we're saying we get $600,000, take $240,000 away from it, that's the realization of what we're actually getting from this standpoint. Are we receiving more money? Yes. Are we receiving enough to fund it? No.
When was the last time the city, where no one received a merit raise? Not a cost of living raise, merit raise.
That's a good question. Probably not since I have been involved in city politics. Probably longer would be my guess.
Not in the 10 years I was here.
There you go. Yes.
If you know, I don't know how you find out, but you can. How do our firemen salary compared to a town our size? And how do those compare? Cause when teachers get to negotiate, that's what they use. We're compared to that school or this school. I mean, these salaries sound like crazy.
Yeah, well, and that's, I would, and they're all big.
So, one important caveat I think that we should make is, as Neodesha citizens, I don't think we spend enough time thinking about how grateful we are to have what we have in terms of service. We are one of the very few and one of the smallest departments in the state of Kansas. We are a county of 8,824 people, and we have 2 full-time EMS departments, and we have 2 hospitals. We have 1 full-time fire department within the city of Neodesha. It's unheard of. We are not the rule, we are the exception across the state of Kansas. Stafford County, 10,000 people, volunteer fire, county-based EMS. Rice County, 11,832 people, volunteer fire department, full-time EMS. Reno County, besides the city of Hutchinson, that's over 68,000 people, county-based EMS, volunteer fire department, excluding the city of Hutchinson. So, we are a unicorn amongst the state of Kansas.
And that's great.
But how does it stack up?
Destroying this budget.
We pay well.
We have to.
That's great.
We have to be able to compete, to be able to get people to come here.
Well, it's not working because they're not coming, Dwayne.
Huh?
They're not coming. You said Friday you had
Well-
trouble finding firefighters to hire.
It's a problem statewide, I mean, nationwide. Iola has trouble getting people, so it's a nationwide problem, and it's kids today growing up don't see the fire service the way they did in my generation. They don't see it as something they wanna go into.
And Mr. Jones, or whatever your name is, I resent you telling me that people in this town don't appreciate our firefighters and our police officers. However, I and Debbie told Friday night that we have some really problems with those same people being competent. They're not showing us that.
That leads into the overtime. When Leon worked for the fire department, it was an 8-man team. They worked 24 hours. They were on call for 24 hours and then off for 48. That 24 hours they were on call, they did not get paid. Unless they got called in because they had an ambulance run or a transfer or a fire or something like that. So they would get paid, compensated for just the time that they were at the fire department, nothing else. This business of, like what Judy and I ran into, of every single firefighter, EMT, EMS, paramedic, whatever you're called, showing up at one location and then not taking a second call because you think you have to stay there. And then all of you transferring to the hospital. And an hour and a half later, that person who fallen down the stairs finally got delivered to our hospital by Fredonia EMS. Because we did not go to that second call. That's wrong. They should not. There should have only been 2 people at that house. Period. Then the two people on call, they are at the fire department, they could take the second one out. Then yes, you're gonna have to call in somebody else. But you also have to remember, when my husband and when Dwayne were there, they had people that could get out there and volunteer to be firefighters. And we have that now. None. And it's a crying shame.
Is there a peer review process for the department? To just tag on what she said when, this is just what she said, but another crew did not leave that call? And is there a peer review process to look at these calls when they're double booked on one call? And if they didn't leave, why didn't they leave? Is there a peer review process for someone to look at these calls to make sure that they're in compliance?
This particular call that she's talking about.
I'm just talking in general, it doesn't have to be that one. Do they have a peer review process?
So, I can't speak of the past, what I can speak of is going forward, and I mentioned earlier that we've made the move to, replace the chief's position with a public safety director. We've placed Chief Sam Tomlinson, and I know his work, I know his background, I know how good he is at his job, and I have 0 concerns going forward that the efficiency so public safety just encompasses fire.
Can we go back to microphones?
Yeah, Tommy's got it.
I asked what was the difference between fire chief and the public safety, what's the difference in that job?
So public safety is an umbrella and covers police, fire, EMS as a whole, anything public safety. You know, and so a lot of communities do public safety. And, you know, we've gone through fire chief after fire chief, and, you know, I can't help but think that the leadership gap that we've had has led to some of the issues that we're facing today. And so, obviously, we took the blueprint that Chief Tomlinson had used when he rebuilt the police department and have utilized it, and hopefully are utilizing it to do the same in the fire department. Now, I don't wanna take away, you know, some of the things that are said, I don't wanna take away what our guys and gals in the department do. I mean, they're there when we call 911, they're there to answer the call, they're there to help our families in time of need. My family, everybody's family in here, I'm sure has used them. So I don't want this to be a bash fest on them. They're just doing their jobs, we will fix it, and things will be fine. We will move forward as a community and everything will work out. But I don't wanna take away and diminish what these guys and gals do for our community, because they are truly lifesavers.
Yes, they are.
I agree.
By the way, what's the difference between 911 and 611?
There is a.
I had never even heard of 611.
Well, you just referred to 611.
611 is US Cellular. If you have a problem with your cell phone, then you go to 611.
Why would they shift it to?
I don't know.
911.
Anyway, okay. Next.
No, this is important.
Okay.
Because this gentleman who called 911 was referred to 611.
Yes, ma'am, but
Austin.
the point of why we're here is
No,
to
the
discuss
point of
fire
what we're
and
here
EMS.
is to solve problems.
Right, just say, did you say, have you worked with
I
somebody?
responded to that call,
Oh,
so he mentioned he called 611 instead of 911.
called 611 instead of
Yes.
911, okay.
Okay. That explains it. See?
We,
Are you trying to tell us that the way things are going right now, things have got to make a change on the long term? Or we're in a hell of a lot more trouble we're in right now?
no, that's why we're here tonight, and, you know, obviously we want your input, but we cannot continue on the path that we're
That's what
going.
I'm saying.
No,
Yeah, we're spending too much money.
in one department, and that's why, you know.
One, you gotta cut them off.
My name's Robin Hubbs. My husband and I moved here 9 years ago, and we love our little town. But I have a question regarding the budget. We are short in the fire department, I understand that, I understand how we got there. But have you had each of the other departments look for the 5 to 7% waste that is in every department and cut those before we make changes to have the citizens pay for the city's prior mistakes?
The answer to your question is yes, and I'm sure Brogan would be glad to list some of the capital outlay items that were cut out of the budget in each department.
Yeah, we got that question Friday night.
Can you guys use the mic because the people in the background are hearing?
Oh, I can get louder, that's not a problem for me.
This is the question, can't hear the question.
The questions. So, the question that pertains to the budget and what has been taken out, mowers, trucks, fire hose, bunker gear, the list goes on and on, roughly, well, not roughly, it's over $100,000 that was pared out of the budget, just in capital outlay, that has nothing to equate to the pare down that everybody in this department in the city has done. It's not a stretch to tell you that 2026 is the leanest budget year across the board for every department in the city. It is a year where we hold on and we hope nothing goes wrong. Because That's where we're sitting. So it is as bare bones and as down as it can get. When we did our budget workshop with the commission, they kept going through looking at here's this, here's this. The problem with that is if you cut this back to such an extreme, I'm talking, well, you know what? In the past, when inflation was 30% lower, we only had 5,000. Give them 2. The problem with that is that leaves no room for error. No room for an increase, no room for a tragedy, and that's something that as a city it's important for us to make sure we maintain. We do not want to be coming back to you guys in October with a budget that you now have to come to us and give your opinion in another open public hearing that would then increase your property taxes a second time to have to cover those needs. So, yes, it is pared down and it is as bare bones as it gets, but we have to be careful of how far we go and how far we're willing to cut that back. The last thing I want to do is run something over budget. As a city admin or a city commission, we have to make sure that we're being responsible with your guys' funds and looking out for the best of everybody in town.
Just had a question.
Sandy, just a second.
If you wanna talk, if you can't stand, hold your hand up, and I'll work on my computer.
Go ahead, Shauna.
Okay, can you hear me?
Nope.
Kiss it.
Yes. So first question, at the last meeting, somebody stood up and said, why are we spending so much on these police cars and all this new stuff, and you said, oh, it's a lease. But last time I checked, a lease still costs money. It's not free, right? You don't just pass it off like, oh, it's a lease. Why do we have so many new things? If we're broke and we can't afford it, then we don't get it. Okay? My husband just retired an 18-year-old plumbing van with 358,000 miles on it. And he goes farther than probably anybody in this town goes. Is he an emergency? Well, it depends on who you are. Yeah, he probably is. For a lot of you, an emergency. I don't see, like, the city water department. Why do they have a new truck? Where do they go? Anybody? Where do they go?
Why do they have one?
Yeah.
They have one to replace a unit that was a 1998 model, to be able to hold, house equipment, and to do essential functions of the city, including reading meters, changing meters.
But they don't go far, so they don't need the brand new bull crap. It's just, I'm over it. I'm over the overspending, and like, we don't always need new shiny bells and whistles. I don't need that. I would rather us crunch, you know, like, you have to cut back when there isn't money to spend. You can't just keep spending it like it grows on trees, or like we're all gonna come in and save you. We can't. I think it's ridiculous. So when they passed the 1%, they put the signs out all over town, and everyone here said, don't vote for that. We don't need that. That's not for us. That's to save Fredonia. That was pretty common going on. So what happened from, that was 23, to now? We didn't need the money, and now we don't have any money. Say again?
Have you looked at the size of the budget in the fire EMS in that
I
time
looked
frame?
at the spending,
So,
and I mean, it's ridiculous. Okay, when Landon was the chief, they got 2 new ambulances,
Yep.
and they said, that's it for 10 years.
Yep.
And then what happened? Was that it for 10 years?
nope, neither is.
Absolutely not.
And if I,
Okay, I just wanna know numbers again. How much do we owe on the fire department? On the department itself?
On the building or the budget?
Yes,
We don't own a dime on the building.
it's paid off. Okay, but the budget that he was showing us, how much on the police department? Is it
No, $70,000 a year through 2032.
32.
Yes, ma'am.
Sandy, I think Sandy, I think what you were asking about is on the ambulances and the fire department, not the building, right?
Well, what we owe, how long do we owe? Didn't you say Friday that we owe so many more years on them?
Yeah, on the ambulances, we owe till
2028.
2028, and that's 2 ambulances. The Sprinter, they paid cash for. Both of those were bought before I come on the commission.
And then the building for the police station
then the
is
fire-
1932, or 2032.
2032, the fire truck comes off in 2029.
Do we share ambulances with Fredonia? Do they have their own?
Yes, ma'am.
How come we don't buy one something
So part of the issue with that and is, you know, again, I mentioned the leadership gap over the last several years.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
If everybody.
We're talking, do you guys have a microphone up here also?
Devin, it'll help if we stand up.
If
Just stand up and you'll project better.
So one of the things that we faced, I mentioned the leadership gap. And so as leaders change, their needs, perceived needs change. Our goal is to give our leaders what they need to do their job efficiently. And that's why we're here tonight, is to talk about how they can do their job efficiently. Some are for funding it the way it is now, some are not. That's why we're having that discussion. But as commissioners, our job is to make sure that they have the tools they need to do their job. And so, when we're approached with, we can't take these transfers that Wilson Medical Center needs done because we don't have an adequate transport unit. Okay, let's get you one. Boom, ambulances. Why are we still not taking these transfers? Well, we need a Sprinter van to be able to do that more efficiently.
What's that mean?
So
Why
that's
was
the
that
smaller
question
transport
not asked when
ambulance.
it was presented?
It was. Actually, it was,
Okay,
multiple
so
times.
did you advocate further,
Advocate for what?
like, as to why, asking why you needed that? I mean,
Yes, because of that, we can't take
So why did you
transfers.
make the decision to provide that? Because,
So that they would have the tools needed to do their job.
but they
That is-
already had the tools needed to do their job. And I'm married into that.
So where was the one person in the department to speak up and tell us that? That is my question.
That's what your piece was for?
I'm sorry?
Checks and balance. That's what's not checks and balance.
Who's-
Somebody's gonna be checking this person.
Are we gonna be, I'm sorry.
It took 6 months, almost 6 months, for the fire department to convince me to vote for a brand new fire truck. Almost 6 months. They insisted we needed that truck. Just like they insisted they needed the Sprinter van to make the transfers for the hospital because it would save money and put less wear and tear on the ambulance. That all came out of the fire department and EMS department when I was on the commission.
And we had one commissioner at the time that I vaguely remember saying, at what point have you taken so much for new equipment that we have to start talking about your jobs? Guess what? Here we are.
Yep.
So,
Sorry.
No.
I'll use my teacher. I didn't mean to cut you off. Are you done?
yeah, go ahead, please.
So.
It's your floor.
Is it? Is it working? No, I'll use my teacher.
It is.
It is working. Okay.
Just hold it close, you gotta kiss it.
So, earlier you mentioned going to an 8-man crew or 8-man department. Currently at a 12-man department, and we accrued a ton of, not to beat a dead horse, but we accrued a ton of overtime. Why are we to think going from a 12-man to an 8-man department is going to reduce overtime? That's counterintuitive. If you have less men to spread the same amount of time, how are we going to reduce the amount of overtime? That's the nuts and bolts of this issue, in my opinion. I mean, we can talk about funding for vehicles and all this other stuff. Not that it's not valid points, but the nuts and bolts of it is we're in a hole predominantly due to the amount of overtime that we're accruing. And I don't know whose fault it is. I'm not here to point fingers. I'm here to solve the issue. Rogan said earlier that the transfers are not paying like we thought they were gonna pay. Are we losing money on transfers? And if we are, do we need to look at not doing transfers anymore? Maybe passing that somewhere else, maybe to the hospital? So that's mine.
Let me answer the first part of that real quick, what do you think?
I'm not touching the transfer.
I do want to answer the first part of your question for you. So, the big reason why we have accrued so much overtime the last couple of years is, yes, we are supposed to be a 12-man department. As of today, we are an 8-man department, trying to cover 12 people worth of shifts. That is more than caused the issue in terms of why we're talking about going to an 8-man. It's a different schedule, different amount of hours, different amount of shifts for them to end up covering and taking. So that's why when we say we're dropping, you say that's counterproductive. What we're trying to do is if we drop to an 8, we go to a different schedule, we limit hours, we limit the opportunity to cover other shifts and overtime to try to cap that number, is the thinking that we are using. So, because right now we have a 12, we only have 8 people on the department, we have 8 trying to do the job of 12 at the moment.
Well, what about the transfers? Hold on.
No, he's got the mic, you're good.
Well, what about transfers?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Rogan, you gonna touch that?
Am I gonna touch transfers?
Mike needs to.
I know transfers, we get charged when we go out, there's a mileage fee for every mile. And so the bills for going out to Wichita or Kansas City or Tulsa or any of these distant hospitals is much larger than a run here in town. So the potential to make more money is there, but there, as you know, just going to your local doctor or to the pharmacist, there's always write-offs on insurance. So some of it gets written off. What hurts us sometimes on transfers where we don't make a lot of money is when it is a Medicaid patient. Because you get a set amount of money and you can come back and fill the truck up and it may pay for that and a little bit more man-hour wise. We lose money on Medicaid. And I expect that to go up with what Washington just recently did to Medicaid with the beautiful big bill. I look for that to get possibly worse on that one. I believe we make money on most transfers, but we need to make sure that all the billing is getting done and all that to do that. That step's already been taken care of correctly. So that's where I'm at on that. And it's important to the hospital. If the hospital wants to start up a transfer service, I think the guys would probably like that. They don't have to get up at 2 a.m. and go to Wichita. But, we don't have any control of what the hospital wants to do, so. But the hospital is here, and if we're the service, we gotta provide a service to them. We don't have to take transfers by law, but if my wife's sitting out at Wilson Medical, and she needs to be transferred somewhere, I'd like to see that happen, just as I know you would. So.
Hi, Bob.
Yeah, I think, I hope I'm speaking for most of the senior citizens here tonight. You was talking about putting a meter fee or whatever. You know, my taxes went up this year, my insurance went up this year. We got a 1% increase here a year or two ago. Senior citizens can only take so much. I mean, we can't go out here, I'm 80 years old, I can't go out here and find another part-time job, and I hope I'm talking for other senior citizens here tonight. So we've got to make a decision where it don't affect our older generation. And that's a fact. We can only take so much. That's about all I got to say.
So I just have a few questions as to like what's proposed. I just have a few questions as to like what's proposed. So you're proposing a two-man crew, correct? Okay, 48 hours on, 96 hours off. Is that correct? 6 days off, whatever 6 days comes out to be. Math is not my strong suit, okay? That does not accumulate to a full-time fire. It takes 212 hours in a 28-day cycle, correct? For them to, be considered like a full-time fire department. Is that correct? We're paying them as a fire department.
They only have.
Okay, so in that, we're not treating them as a full-time employee. If you only do the 2 days on and then the 6 days off.
They work a full year. They would work a full year, full-time, full benefits, everything is the same. They are a full-time employee at that scale. They
So
would
will
work.
there, how will this affect like their income? I understand the benefits portion will all stay the same. But everybody else in the city is still working 40 hours and anything after 40 hours is accruing overtime. So how are you going to help them essentially still be a full-time employee? Like they're not gonna be working a full-time job. Are we still gonna treat them as a fire department, or are we gonna treat them what they really are, which is EMS? I'm just curious how all this is gonna work. Because we're treating them as two, we talk about them as two separate departments, but we treat them as one. And so,
Two on call, 2 on, 6 off, that's 4 days in a week, right?
no call.
Oh, no call.
The current 2026 budget year, what is built in there is a schedule that works 2 days on, 6 days off, no call. That is being explored with other options of how do you substitute that with an on-call, a standby. Those are discussions that are currently being had.
So those 2 days on is 48 hours of pay.
48. That equates to 2,202 hours a year.
How many of you guys wanna be away from your family for 48 hours?
They're doing it now.
That's their current schedule as well.
They asked for that schedule.
They asked
We
you?
have, that schedule was proposed after some previous things took place, with former leadership. So, do I enjoy being away from my husband for 48 hours? No.
Do you enjoy missing out on your kids' activities? No.
So, but that's not my question. My family has adjusted, okay? We're here for it. That's the lifestyle that we've committed to, is to serving our community. But I also don't wanna see my husband be work, call, all over. He worked for 20-something years with no call, we're on call for free. Okay, he got paid that little bit, but he wasn't allowed to leave town, and that was not pleasant. Okay, so on his call days, we couldn't leave town, we couldn't make plans, we couldn't do anything, because he's expected to drop what he's doing and come in and serve the citizens of this community. Which he did gladly for a long time, and he still does, and he will continue to do so. But my question is now, how are you gonna fix it? How are you gonna take care of your employees that you have and still treat them like a full-time employee when they have like no opportunity to ever need any overtime like any other employee in town? They'll never reach overtime with that 2 days, 6 days off schedule. But also, I have another question, so just pencil that into your thoughts, because I don't expect an answer at this very second. Transfers for the hospital. We are providing a service to our hospital. Can we not pass that on to the hospital and charge them for the service that we're providing? They don't pay us anything to come and provide that service. So why are we not passing that on to our hospital, which we also pay a 1% sales tax to for a county hospital as a city, which I'm a little disappointed in, and it'll never sunset. We pay for a 1% sales tax to our county hospital. So, and it'll never go away. But why are we bending over for the hospital and letting them dictate what we do with our ambulance services as far as a transfer and things? And why are we not billing them for that service? I just have, that's all I got.
So my question is, how much do we spend on excess mowing every year? You know, you come into town and you look at all the standard oil places that we're mowing, and you know it's taking time, equipment and all that, but how much money are we spending there?
Give me your definition of excessive.
Okay, so anything that's not necessary. You know, we're out here at the old standard oil places that nobody's supposed to be able to use. Why are we mowing it?
The best answer for that is it's city property. We have a standard to maintain that we enforce upon our citizens of this height, or we send you a mow notice, we take care of it. That's, to go back and quote Dwayne from Friday night, is it's hard to tell your citizens to do something if you're not willing to do it yourself. So we maintain our properties to our own standard.
That isn't in the city limits.
It is city-owned property.
But it's not in the city limits. And
I understand.
honestly, it's big pasture areas. So that's a little bit different than residential. That all costs money. And right now we're trying to pitch every penny that we want to save these guys jobs. Because I tell you why, you know, we don't give enough credit. You know, what they make is what they make. You know, you can't put a price on your life or anything like that. So when it comes down to pitching pennies, it's just like your normal budget. If you cannot afford to go out and mow these big areas, then why are we doing it? Why are we still paying TLC to beautify Main Street?
That is not a city of Neodesha, that is Neodesha.
Well, that's good. So there's a lot of little ways when you really want to pitch pennies when it comes down to even, you know, being accountable for employees. Does it take 2 people to go out and do a locate? You know, I used to work with a cable company. You know, I mean, I used to have to do all the services in town, cover 3 other towns, plus do locates by myself. And, you know, when we were on call also, you know, and the way they communicated that was you got paid for 7 hours for the whole week that you were on, whether you took a call or not. And then everything after that was overtime. But if we could take out any little penny we can by mowing these areas, put them out for hay. Somebody will hay them for you. I mean, think about it. I mean, you're putting one guy on a tractor with brush hog, and I guarantee it's probably taking them a day to reach lot. You start adding that up to the equipment fee, overtime that's gonna be acquired for that, fuel, equipment wear and tear. Is it necessary? Just to make it look beautiful? I mean, we got a fountain in the pond for that.
Kenny, go ahead.
I just wondered, do you know these houses you're tearing down, and the houses have been torn down before, they're not capping?
Give them the mic.
The sewers are wide open. Do you know the housing that you have been turned down, and have been torn down before you? Regardless of who it is that's torn down, whether, the sewers are not being capped, they're open. So you're getting, could be getting sewage back up the line, or you could be getting infiltration into your sewer system.
He says we'll follow up on it. If you have specific addresses, please.
Well, about any of them?
Can you check on
So
that?
you take the ones that you just had, you take the ones you just had done, see the one there on 8th Street there called by the high school?
We didn't have that done.
Okay.
That was private.
Yes, Tommy, you were over there, weren't you? That's capital.
Yeah. Talking about the one that was on fire?
Yes.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
It's capital.
I know that Zimmerman and them guys that done it didn't cap their any sewers. They didn't go, if they did, they didn't go, the estimate didn't go to plan.
To this one? Any demo that I issue now.
Use mine.
Come on, Tommy. Well, I need the mic. Any demo we do now, we cap it.
Let's
It's
go
sold-
back and check the others.
Well, if anything was done before me, and it's already been covered, there's not much I can do about it, but right now, any demo done right now is capped. Either with a plastic cap or they cover with concrete to make sure we don't get infiltration.
Good answer. Thanks, Council. Thank you, Katie.
I have a question on the commissioners meeting, to come up, it says resolution, levy property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate. What exactly does that mean?
Okay, I don't think the people that wrote the law knows what that means, honestly.
The R&R is set based on your evaluation and the city's evaluation. Long story short, the R&R number that we get from the county is to get the exact amount of dollars that we levied the previous year.
What is R&R?
Revenue neutral rate is what that stands for. So the revenue neutral rate we get from the county is to get the exact same amount of dollars that we levied for 2025's budget. That's what that means. So when we say we're stating our intent to levy over that, it could be, I can't remember the actual R&R, so don't quote me, let's just say 60. If we want to go to 61, we have to state our intent to do so. That's what we did.
That means you raise the taxes.
That means we raise property taxes, yes ma'am.
Are the property taxes really, are they being reprinted?
You're talking from
The county.
Yes ma'am, you can get one if you request it.
You have to go over that.
Yes.
I tapped you with it.
Yes.
Everybody wants to use mine.
I think I answered your question.
Okay, that's good.
It's not karaoke.
You have to take it over to the.
How's it being covered? So.
Find out the right one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the original, we've passed the revenue neutral rate that allows us to have an independent department. Sorry, Debbie. You're still good at bossing me around. So her question was, how is the proposal that I've set forward being paid for? So we have passed the revenue neutral rate, or the exceed of 4 mills, I think is what 3 mills? Which, let's not, so just for anybody that doesn't know, 1 mill in the city of Neodesha is only about $11,000. So, there we go. So it doesn't go a long ways. So when we say 3 or 4 mills, that's not buying much. So it's not a drastic raise. But so with that, we had already set forward that worst case scenario, we can fund full-time fire EMS with an 8-man crew or 8-man department with no transfers. That's the trick that he and I have been playing with, is how can we make transfers work? And Sharon brought up a good point, you know, and it's conversations that I think that we've talked about. Is there a charge that we can charge that the hospital can pass through to the patient on their bill? You know, I don't know. Those are all conversations, and that's why we are trying to get to the bottom of some of this, you know, and figure out what is a winning solution for everybody. And so, with that said, to get transfers back in, you heard us mention earlier that we were taking the cost of living raises out for next year.
Is this cost of living for the whole city or just the?
Whole
department?
city.
Okay.
Whole city. And so, right? Yes. Yes. But we leave merit raises in. So, do your job well, you qualify for a merit raise. But we're not gonna do cost of living raises next year if this proposal, again, this is one proposal.
Not that I'm a city
Yes.
employee.
And we did also, I apologize, we did also work back in transfer revenues that we had originally taken out in, when we thought we weren't taking in transfers.
So what is covering your proposal? A 1% mill, a 3% mill?
No, the mills.
The mills cannot raise.
Mills cannot raise any more
So
than
your
what we've already.
proposal is costing nothing to the citizens of
Costing nothing
Neodesha.
to the citizens of Neodesha.
It's covered by, it'll be covered by an increase. When we initially talked about not doing transfers, we set EMS revenues at $50,000. And with the new information that we've gotten from Mediclaims, our billing company, what we're saying is we are more realistically to be around $150,000. So that $100,000 could be used for a standby pay to help cover that.
And that's the goal of this. If they're standby, we wanna offer a competitive wage. And that's again, where does that land? What is that? He mentioned 10, I don't think that's it. When you look at it, base it off of where surrounding communities are, most of them are $1 or $2. We wanna exceed that. Don't get me wrong, we wanna be more than that, you know, because we are asking them to come back and take calls, so we wanna make it at least enticing to them. But again, those are numbers, we've gotta see what works in the budget that we've already levied out. Hey, Meg.
I was gonna say, how are the how are they done when you get a merit raise? Who decides? I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I just like to ask questions.
So, each department head does their entire department. They then have to pass it along through me for final write-off and consideration. So, everybody's merit raise in the city. For example, I'm gonna use Chris. Chris goes through me, Stephanie goes through me, all the ladies in the office go through Stephanie. That's how they're done. They're by your direct department head.
Okay, I just wanna make sure it's fair for everybody, because, you know, I go back to high school. High school wasn't a fair place to be. Everybody knows that. I wanna make sure the little guy that really does a good job may not be seen as getting a raise.
Yes, ma'am.
So my question is, we're solely focused on fire and EMS. They're of course going to be our biggest department. They work 24-hour shifts. They do fire and EMS. We have all the things. They have to buy all of the supplies. Are we not looking at any other departments? I mean, we're gonna cut a department in half, but yet, how many city employees do we have in the office? How many does it take? How many employees did we have in the office 10 years ago compared to now?
We have one more.
There's currently one more heavy in city
There
office.
used to only be 3 office girls and the city administrator, and that was it. How many do we have now?
What year?
Years, for years.
96, 97, 98, 99. That's when we moved here, we didn't have buku tons of younglings in the city hall.
And with the increased technology is human,
It should be less.
it should be less with the increase in technology.
So how many did you have?
Back in, I'll have to say names, cause that's how I remember it. So we had, let me think just a second, we had Anita, Joyce, Sally, I'm trying to think when I came to work here. Anita, Joyce, Sally, Giovanna. We had, they brought me on because when I came to work here, I was the purchasing agent and the support clerk, because Don Armstrong was retiring from public work, that's where those positions.
We can't hear you.
She's just counting. All saying here in a
I'm
minute.
just counting, okay, so we had, Giovanna, Joyce, Sally, Anita,
Throughout the years or?
and that when I came in '94, we had those 4 gals, then they hired me part-time because as a purchasing agent and municipal court clerk, because the purchasing agent and the, actually judge, they didn't have a court clerk, the judge was Don Armstrong out of the Public Works Department, and he was retiring. So, then they also hired a judge to take Don's place because of all the way that police and.
6.
Yeah, so 6.
Answer your question, 6, we're at 9, we're at 10 for another week, we're gonna be at 9, we've added 3 in 30 years.
So that's what?
We've added a building inspector,
80,000 a year?
let me think, that would be the 2 positions we've added.
The dog catcher.
3, you said 3, not 2, yeah.
Front desk. Maybe right at 100, maybe. That's 3 full-time positions. Maybe right at 100 for 3. All together.
Nah.
All together.
You're always more than welcome to file a, open records request.
Oh, okay.
as well.
Sure.
I just had a question. Have you guys thought about asking someone to come in and help you with the budget, like an outside source or anything? I mean, that's like non-biased. Not saying that you guys can't do it, I just didn't know if that was an option that you guys would consider.
The last budget that I had, that I know someone insisted on cost $32,000.
Okay, that's, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's a healthy expense.
Are there grants out there to help with stuff like this, since we're like, obviously.
Grants always cost money.
No.
That's how we ended up with the generator.
Oh, that's all I'm getting at,
Sorry, I'm trying to hear you.
No, that's fine, I'm not talking about anything else, I just didn't know if you guys had looked at bringing somebody in just to help try to figure out this budget, where it's not, I hear everybody mess, I want to save it, or just completely non-biased on the whole situation.
Right. That's what we use an auditor for every year, to get accurate numbers, get the numbers through. So, but to answer your question, no, we haven't realistically looked at that. That is, I mean, this was the cheapest one I think I've ever seen, and it was $32,000 3 years ago.
You know, you can invite a consultant in, but you have to be careful with what you wish for, because there's a good chance everything that we're here talking about saving tonight, if a consultant comes in here, the first thing they're gonna say, it's a volunteer fire department, that'll fix your problem, and turn the EMS over to the county. That will be their first answer. And so, we've gotta be careful what we wish for. Hey, Aaron.
First comment, an auditor's purpose is to review the records and make sure everything is correct and by statute. It has nothing to do with making sure your budget's correct, it's to look at it and make sure you're not in budget violations and stuff like that. They don't look at your budget and say, you did the budget right or you did the budget wrong. My next question would be, it seems like the first thing that when it's like, okay, we finally don't have any money, we need to figure out this budget thing, let's get rid of the fire department, because it's a fire and EMS, because it's a big department. In a year and a half that I was on the commission, there was multiple times, there was $10,000 here, $15,000 there, another 10 here for an improvement, another, let's redo a curb because it's cracked, because people keep running over it, and stuff like that. There always seemed to be room in the budget for that. Is all of that stuff getting cut? Because we would sit there in a meeting and we would have a conversation about, well, they want us to put in $15,000 for this. Is it in the budget? Was it originally budgeted for? No, but, well, there's room in the budget here, there's room in the budget there. Has all that stuff been cut out?
Answer my question. My thing is, we're all here to try and figure out answers to problems, right? So, out of the folks that are sitting up there, we've all talked about different scenarios, whether it's ambulance, EMS, fire, police, mowing properties. What do you folks say? Because it sounds like the overwhelming problem are transfers. Am I correct in that? Because it sounds like that, and if it is, what are your own personal perspectives of what is the problem, what do you want to cut? Because I think that's what a lot of folks want to hear is, you know, we're dancing around a bunch of different topics. What do you guys personally feel is the problem, so we can kind of narrow it down rather than going over multiple a broad spectrum of points? And say, let's focus on one thing and figure that out because it seems to be the root of all problems here.
Are you speaking about EMS transfers, or are you talking about transfer of funds?
EMS transfer.
Okay. For me, that is an issue. We got to find a way to be able to service the needs of the hospital. If we don't, the hospital doesn't exist.
It's not serving the hospital, it's serving the people.
Do what?
It's not serving the hospital, it's serving the people. It's the people that get hurt if we don't transfer people. It's the people that die. It's not the hospital.
Right.
It's the people.
It's the people that are out there. That's why I'm so adamant about it, because I've lived here 30 plus years. Most of that time has been serving you, making sure you get adequate care. And that is what I'm fighting for, is to make sure that we still provide adequate care. Yes, the guys do a great job getting them to the hospital, but that's not the end of the process a lot of the time. A lot of the time, we gotta get them somewhere else. And I'm not opposed to anything that funds that without raising anything, if we can still do that, because that's the core mission of the fire department. And I'd say fire department, it's under that for financial reasons. It's more of an EMS department than it is fire department, we just do both. So the core mission is to save life and property, and that's what I'm fighting for, that we still provide that level of care. The original budget as it come out did not. So, if we can find a way, even if it's 8-man, going back to the days like I had, I'm for that.
Should I ask a question?
Well, I'm here to sit there and say, a lot of the reason that most of us elderly are here is because we're tired of our taxes going up constantly, our utility bills going up constantly, and we're tired of just everything, it seems like it's rubber stamped, and our city government needs to start taking a little bit, to all of us, a little more responsibility of paying and buying what needs to be bought, and passing on stuff that really doesn't need to be bought, like Emily was just saying about this doesn't need fixed, if it's a curb here or a curb there, and let's get our house in order and be responsible people that run our government. That's what we want as Neodesha people. We like to have a nice yard, we like to have nice houses, yeah, but we also like to have a fire department, EMS, police departments. I think 8 policemen and 8 new vehicles is extreme, but that's just my opinion. But still, there's ways that we can cut a lot of the things that we spend money on. And I agree that we got way too many people mowing, but that's another thing. Yeah, we all like our yards cut nice. But the main thing is, you look around this room, 90% of us are over 55 and 60 years old, and it deals with our pocketbooks because most of us live on a limited amount of income.
I have no question on it. I just wondered if there's a possible way that the city could mow West Granby from the railroad tracks out to the highway. It looks like hell. Like you mow all all 75 my way, turnout, we would like to have on Granby Street, we would like to have a little bit more out that way.
Even better, we're gonna do the median on 400, Kenny.
I can want myself.
You're up.
I would like to know why, and I've been told at least one member of the commission is opposed to the Wilson County taking the EMS. If that's something that they're required to provide, and it relieves us of the bill because I'm assuming if you get a call to go out in the county, we pay for it. So why wouldn't we consider the EMS just being moved over to the county and ran by the county? Because my understanding is that would still house in our area. It wouldn't change the service other than the payer source. Now, I'm not sure that I'm accurate on that. That's just the way it's been explained to me. So I'd like clarification from you guys, and I'd like to know where each commissioner specifically stands on why we would not pass EMS over to the county and put the transfers on Wilson County Hospital. It's a county hospital. So anybody that gets transferred out of there comes out of our tax dollars versus the county. There's more people in the county than there is in the city of Neodesha.
Yeah, I'll start that one off because I'm the one that you're talking about that is opposed to that. And I can tell you why. Because they're not going to take it over. The county's not going to take it over. They're going to use, the county is gonna pass it off to Fredonia Regional Hospital. So what does that mean? That means Fredonia Regional Hospital then gets $1.3, $1.4 million in their coffer because they're getting our EMS tax that's here. The other piece of that a lot of people don't think about, anything on the north side of Neodesha out of city limits, we're probably not going to see them at Wilson Medical Center. We're probably gonna see them at Fredonia Regional Hospital at that point because Fredonia is managing that service. You could probably see a 25% drop in our ER, in the people that show up at our ER because of that, or 50. I mean, it could be drastic. So those are things we've got to think about. And again, we're tasked with protecting our citizens and doing what's right for our citizens, and that's why I'm opposed to that. If the county truly takes it over and runs it and says, here, Neodesha, here's your money, take care of it. Here, Fredonia, here's your money, you take care of it. Let's do it. I'm all for it because we can provide the service at the current level. All's good. But the county is not going to do that because it costs too much for them to set up their own EMS when they've got somebody itching to take it over because they're licking their chops because they see the writing on the wall. It's just a death jab to us. So that's why I'm opposed to that. I'm looking out for my interests as a city commissioner.
Devin, is our hospital still classified a county hospital?
It is.
It is? Okay.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yep. And so, you know, the other piece of that is we give that to the county, good chance we go volunteer fire. And then our industry
We'll
suffers.
our businesses.
So that's my answer.
That would be
Thank you.
my
Yes.
point, is if we give it EMS, say to Wilson Medical, totally give it to them. 600,000+ would go to them. That leaves us no funding for a paid department that would go volunteer. I am almost 100% positive that would make our ISO rating go up, which would affect all your homeowners' insurance.
Yes.
It would definitely affect Cobalt astronomically. That would be, if that happened. The same thing would happen if we gave it to the county and they handed it to Fredonia. The exact same thing would happen. That's why I'm not, that'd be my least favorite option. Now, would people get the care they needed? Absolutely. If the hospital had it, but having a paid department anymore would be a thing of the past. We've been a paid fire department since the 20s.
I'd like to hear from Ed, just because I'd like to hear his perspective. It may be the same, but we haven't heard much from him yet.
I was just wondering if this is gonna affect like the helicopter or perhaps an air ambulance. Why don't we use the airport?
I can answer, I'll answer that question real quick for you. The airport is 4 feet too short and does not have ILS. Years ago, they used to land airplanes out there for air ambulances. They have stopped doing that because of those two reasons.
Because of the.
The runway is too short and there's not an instrument landing type thing. So.
I guess, to answer your question, I am really glad we're not voting on anything tonight, because we're hearing your opinion, and I think our opinions are still evolving. But when the mayor was describing his answer to you, I'm the one in his elbow throughout, or 50%. If we give away our control, if you will, of our own EMS department, even if the hospital were to stand up and go, all right, we'll take over. Go ahead and give us your EMS. We'll take it all. If that were to happen and 6 months later they change their mind and it still ends up over there at the other EMS department, I would tend to believe that any of the patients that they have even a chance of going over there will go over there, and our hospital will financially suffer. It's a really good thing to have a hospital. I have read, and I know Brogan has, we've all read material about cities out there that have lost their hospital. It hurts their business, industry, residences. You gotta jealously maintain having a hospital here. I don't wanna support anything that's going to financially hurt that hospital and enrich another hospital and another EMS outfit. So, again, thank goodness we're not making any decisions on this tonight.
And I just appreciate you guys answering, because that's something we've heard repeatedly, but you don't get a clear answer on Facebook. It's not all true there.
No,
So it's just
certainly
nice
not.
to hear from you guys, your perspective, so we know what you're saying.
Thank you. The Facebook Commission has all the answers.
Standing up, but it doesn't make much difference. I want to address the insurance issue on the ISO rating, which a lot of you might know is protection class, and every fire department and county fire department, rural fire department is rated based on their fire protection. We have a full-time fire department, Fredonia, and I called around and compared some places just because of all this issue. Fredonia has an all-volunteer fire department. We have the very same protection class as Fredonia. But not saying that, I don't want us to go to an all-volunteer, because I know the fire chief in Fredonia very well, and all volunteer fire departments are struggling trying to get volunteer fire departments. So, I just wanted to address the protection class issue. It can raise rates. A lot of insurance companies do. State Farm doesn't base their rates on protection class. Most other insurance companies do. So it could, if our protection class raised, it could raise your insurance rates.
The one reason Fredonia has the same class as us is you're just not, ISO doesn't just rate your fire department. They rate the water department and 911. We both use the same 911 center, so they should get the same score off that. Where the difference is the amount of water tower space they have for storage water. We have how we make up the difference is in equipment and manpower at the fire department.
So I know that we're in a bad situation and we gotta figure out a way to fix it, but how are we gonna ensure that in the years to come, when you guys are no longer on the boards, no longer county commissioners or whatever, how are we gonna make sure that this does not happen again? How are we gonna make sure that this passes along and we don't repeat history and this just happens to the city of Neodesha?
I don't have a crystal ball, but, my goal is to always leave, and we've talked about this many times in the past. Our goal is to leave the city in a better place than we found it, and be thinking about those commissioners that are gonna be serving 20 years down the road. We think about that with purchases, we think about that with assets, and so I would like to think, and I'm not to pick on the proposed meter fee, but that's a good example of when does it end, because there's a good chance that there's no fixed cost to it. It could have to go up every year it may get us through 26, but then if we're a shortfall in 27, we gotta raise the meter fee again. And we just gotta keep throwing more money at it every single year. Whereas if we set something like I proposed in there, it should set us up for long-term success, similar to how we ran the department for many years.
Hello. So, first of all, I'd like to say, you know, I really, I don't know that I'm in favor of the meter fee. I'm very much in favor of living in the security that if there's an emergency at my home, someone will come and help me. I don't wanna be in a position where I'm standing on 8th Street watching my house burn down because nobody's answering the calls. So I do greatly appreciate our service providers. I do wanna say, you know, like I said, I can't support the meter fee, but I greatly support Dwayne Banzett for starting this whole conversation that we're having.
Yes.
The whole reason that everybody's here, the whole town is talking, whether it's good or bad, is because he saw a problem and didn't come forward with a proposed solution. And so I think this is the most involved I have felt in city processes in many, many years. Usually it's just up to you to try to make a city meeting at 2 o'clock or watch it on Zoom when you could, and decide, I mean, you know, I was working and watching meetings, so I don't always have a chance to call in or to catch everything. So Dwayne, thank you for opening this conversation and making it very accessible to the public in our city. What I also wanted to do though was circle back to, so what is our budget for, the total budget proposed for the upcoming year? What's our total, what is it, 11 million?
You gotta give me a second.
It seems like every time I looked at a different document, I saw a different total, and I just wasn't sure what I was supposed to be seeing. And I was just curious about like our budget total for last year versus this year versus next year. Because Brogan did, you know, mention that we had, that he had, you know, you mentioned right off the top of your head, we've canceled at least $100,000 in expenditures, in capital expenditures. But that doesn't seem to be a very large percentage of our overall budget, so I kind of felt there's a lot more work to be done there.
On our budget summary page for 2026, our total budget for this year is $15,749,000.
Okay.
Last year was $15,909,000, and the previous year was $15,380,000.
Okay, so right around $15 million a year. For some reason, I had $11 million stuck in my head, so I choose my calculator now. So $100,000 cut in expenditures on an $11 million budget was less than 1%. So on a $15 million budget, it would be, you know, far less, I guess I could say. So anyway, where are we gonna, how deeply do you think we
And I'm
can go
gonna
with
say
our
that
cuts?
the total of that also includes city, library, and economic development. So it's not just city, it's the library and economic development.
So, something very important to remember when it comes to our overall budget is something that a lot of people don't think of is that includes our price to purchase power, our price to purchase gas, our fees to do those types of businesses, and you will be amazed at the number that number hits. In fact, I mean, we're talking purchases of $4 million in gas, $4 million in electric, $3 million in producing water. So when it comes to your services, in that 15 million, you can equate a large majority of that in us purchasing, supplying, and maintaining the systems that we have here in town. So that is the vast majority of what we're.
But then that money comes back into the budget, because that's what we use to fund the other departments, right? We're transferring it out.
We're transferring to such an extent,
So
yes.
that money is not all lost, it's not all expenditures, that's generating some income back.
It does. And then that income has been transferred to the general fund for a large share. I'm not saying all of it. I will say the lion's share is transferred back out. We're scheduled to make a $1.9 million transfer from our gas fund in 2025. We're averaging about $1.6 million a year.
Okay, so then I have to ask, people who know me know this is my favorite question whenever I have like a little burr in my saddle about city stuff. So why is it that we always hear the phrase, that we don't make money on utilities? I've heard y'all say in meetings before, we don't make any money on utilities. Like, we are assured that whatever we're being charged for utilities is the lowest we can be charged, and it's always cost-based, and it's only raised at great pains, and would prefer not to. But yet they're hearing that, you know, despite us paying millions of dollars a year for the rights to provide the service, that we're still clearing $1.9 million to pay for other things. Where does that, how do those two things, like, reconcile?
Gas costs, we don't make anything.
We don't. you're talking about those funds as a whole, I will be the first person to tell you that I'm never gonna say that we don't make any money on those funds. That's how you have fire, EMS, police, that's what's funding these things. A lot of questions we get relate to our fuel adjustment costs on bills, and everybody wants to know about fuel adjustment costs. We don't make a dime on fuel adjustment costs. That is just over and above what it costs us to purchase that power, and that adjustment is then put on the bill. Our revenue is found strictly in kilowatt hour, gallons per minute, everything like that we come into. So, a lot of things get thrown around in terms of making money from a city standpoint, and I will say that for the last seasonable amount of years, especially the last 5, we haven't made a lot of money. And it's reflected in our budgets. You can see our reserves dropping and dropping and dropping to a point where we have $1 million industries with tens of thousands of dollars worth of cash on hand. So one of the things that I've always preached to the commission during my 2 budget sessions is we have to have cash on hand for these departments. Our electric department and our electric crew cannot keep subsidizing to the extent they're subsidizing. And one of the things that I've said, and I'm sure some people up here hate this expression, is if something terrible happened to Neodesha, we would be financially strapped and we could not afford to supply what we are being, 1, asked to supply, and 2, what we are currently supplying. Our electric fund has enough money to operate for less than a week currently without any revenues coming in. Our gas department, less than 2. It's the state average, and what they say you should be able to cover at least 3 months in those funds in terms of cash forward, cash reserve. So if something terrible were to happen today to our electric system, we do not give our electric crews the resources and the ability to get you guys back on. And that's a huge issue that we've been trying to address with this, and that's a lot of where this conversation came from. Look, we cannot keep doing what we're doing to this extent. We need a solution.
So back to my question then. So we are looking at more aggressive cuts in the less than 1% on our budget? Is that correct?
Our budget is strapped. Our budget is, this budget as presented, which is 65.64 mils and 15 million, whatever the number is, that is as bare bones as this budget gets. That is as cheap as the city of Neodesha can get to providing the services, the level of service that we are providing. With the investments that we've made, with everything that we do, personnel, that is as close as you can get.
Question, Mike?
Thank you, Devin. The one question I actually have a couple. First one being, with the proposed meter fee, you have several people in town that have more than 1 electric meter. Does that incur with each meter on that property?
Yes, sir.
So, like, with what I've got a garage that for some reason is on a separate meter than the house. I currently pay maybe $25 for that garage because the lights and things are never on in the thing. You're talking about doubling that bill with that meter increase.
I'd say close. So 15 is the current. The new one, the new proposed is 24 per electric residential meter. So it'd be $24 per electric. Yes.
Okay.
So close.
How do we justify that?
I think we've already discussed this at the beginning, that this is going to happen. I have 2 commissioners that aren't for it, so it's a dead issue.
Proposals for that, but if that's the one that gets ultimately chosen, how do you justify? Yeah, certainly some people, in my case, it'd be a double on a $25 if you're talking $50, but there's other people who do that.
So I have an answer for you, and This is as straightforward as I can put it. That increase is what was needed to cover the amount of funds that were needed to support the proposed budget increase that would keep the current level of service. So that is what I could come up with that got us to that number as cheap as possible. So
And that falls into my next question, and I may be completely off base with this. It seems that we've been able to come up with a grant here and a grant there for beautification of this or replacement of that, a fountain in the middle of a pond, but you've got a major service here that is about to go belly up. You can't tell me that there ain't a grant somewhere, national, state, whatever, that can at least put a Band-Aid on this problem until you people can figure this problem out.
So the problem with that is, I'm not going to tell you there's not grants available for fire and EMS. What I am going to tell you is there's not a single grant out there that is going to come in to subsidize our current spending limits. Those would be for new fire truck, new bunker gear, air packs. There are grants everywhere for all types of things, but none are going to fund us to the extent of writing the grant saying we need $200,000 just for our everyday operations. No one's gonna fund that.
What we've done is dug ourselves a bit too big of a hole to almost get out of it.
Go ahead, Tom.
I just want to bring this back to where what everyone's here for is that if we cut our fire department and EMS down to 2 people on sick call, if there's 2 things going on at the same time, which I know Ed said that very rarely happens. Last week during the Derrick fire, when all the fire department was at the Derrick, there was a little boy that needed an ambulance at the very same time. If we only have 2 people working, then who's gonna go to the other call? Because if I call the ambulance for my mom or my dad, somebody better come. A lawsuit would cost a lot more than this,
Like I'm saying, that's what I'm fighting for, is that we got back.
I know you are, but the rest of them, who's gonna take care of the little boy when they're fighting fire?
That's why we need to get people to volunteer to be firemen.
But they won't.
And I know.
They won't. They're
I'm sorry, guys.
firefighters and we have to have EMT.
I'm sorry, guys, who are the fire department and stuff. Get out there to the schools, talk to those boys and girls that have those
They do.
shoes, and get them to come out.
People don't wanna pay y'all, let alone.
Exactly. But that also goes back to what I said earlier about only working 24 and being on call for 24. And then the two that are on call for 24 are going up to the fire station in case there's another call. All of them are out fighting the fire.
Okay, let's get back on track. We are pushing up on 8 o'clock, so let's be respectful of time. But I do want everybody's opinion and have something, a comment, question. We do want to hear it.
Okay, so this goes back to the generators, because it hit me. So many years ago, I worked in the city. I started out in the electric plant. And many years ago, that thing was in disarray, and the manager of that at the time kept pushing, and we needed a new power plant, because people don't realize how important that was to the community. There were more than one occasion back then where when we lost power, from KGD back then, that we would pick up and we would run, one time, 24 hours, the lights on. But we also ran every day during the summer to cut the cost of scheduled C power down. So with these new generators, are we gonna have the ability to do that? Or because that'll be a big savings right there, guys.
Okay, so the new generators are something that everybody in town looks at, I believe, differently. But here, let me tell you the 3 big reasons why those generators were purchased. 1, it provides us capacity that we haven't had since the old power plant went out. That capacity allows us to purchase power up to 15 megawatts on our current system. We currently, before generation, paid a demand charge and service fees on anything over our 12, 13 peak that we normally have. So that is capping your costs and capping the city's costs and saving everybody money in the process. Number two, they ensure that if we ever have an issue on transmission lines again coming into town, that the city of Neodesha can pick up and carry that load and the entire town load for an extended period of time. And number three is if we ever, God forbid, experience another situation like Winter Storm Uri, we cap our absolute cost to produce power at what it costs the city of Neodesha to produce. And hopefully, in a situation like that, I'm really hoping one doesn't happen, but anything over what our capacity is, we sell back to the grid, get credit back for, to lower the tension on you. So next time, the $800,000 from Winter Storm Uri doesn't exist.
I think a lot of people don't understand that they might look at the generators as not necessary, and it's just there for if the lights go out. But that ability to put Schedule C power out onto the grid, that's a big negotiating tool. It was back then, and that saved us a lot of time.